All right, what's going on, guys? This is Logan with West Desert Wheeler. Today we've got my Axial Capra out here. This one's been pretty heavily modified while still pretty much looking like a normal Axial Capra. So what's it got? It's got some big brass knuckles up front. It's got my cut and shut tires. It's got some Vision RC 2.2 wheels. Let's see what else. We changed out the transmission twice. So now it's got a Reefs transmission in here from Reefs RC. And then what I mostly want to talk about today is the revolver and the ESC setup in this car, and why I now have 4 of these ESCs for revolvers. So let's get this thing out on the rocks and let's check it out. Real quick, other parts on the car. It's got a Reefs 888 direct power servo, and then of course we've always got our SL3D RC Squid'n'serts in our tires because they perform excellent. If they didn't work good, I would not use them. We also have some Traxxas shocks on here. These are the big bores, and they are the 106 millimeter. They're some long shocks. But for this drag axle car, meaning it doesn't have 4-wheel steer, it could use the articulation. And with my West Desert Wheeler winch servo mount for the nose of this car, oh, we're in trouble now. Whoops. I have a micro winch mount installed in here that I actually make. Those will be making a comeback, just so you guys know. Just needed to get more on the way, and I'm in the middle of ordering more in these past few days. I've been working on it, so more parts coming back in stock. I apologize, my website always seems like everything's out of stock, but you know, I can't carry crazy amounts of inventory just because I'm a small business. That's how it goes sometimes. All right, so let's talk about this ESC in particular. So while at Proline by the Fire, met a bunch of awesome people out there and bumped into a kid who goes by Apothecary RC on Instagram, and he let me try his truck while we were out there. He had a brushless system in his truck with this ESC, and immediately I was like, dude, this thing is awesome. This is like one of the punchiest ESCs I've ever felt, to where it's just instantaneous. You give it throttle, it responds. It's pretty wild. And it is a 70 amp ESC. It's a silent ESC with the revolvers, which is nice. I had been running the Holmes silent Crawlmaster V3s, which is Holmes's brushless silent ESC, and I was a little unhappy with some of the stuttering I was getting on the bottom end. These revolvers use different sine waves, sine and cosine or some shit. I don't fully understand, I'm not quite that level of nerd, but they start out using a sine wave for the super low end smooth control. And then at a certain point, it transitions into a different type of signal for the motor once it gets going fast enough. And basically that transition from that low speed to the higher speed, I was having issues with my Holmes Crawlmaster V3s. It just wasn't as buttery smooth as this one is. So what ESC is this? This is a Sequre ESC, S-E-Q-U-R-E. I think I spelled that right. Anyway, I will put it up on screen and then I will link it down in the description below. These ESCs are incredibly affordable. They have a built-in BEC if you order it with one, which I've only ordered the same ESC 4 times. And it's the Escape 32 size, 70 amp with BEC. And I can tell you guys, I've been having incredibly good luck with these things, and they're very affordable. Recently they were on sale for like 36 bucks. So you need to get over there. The website's a little weird because it's definitely out of China. That's where these things are coming from. So it does take some time to ship, but all 4 of mine have shown up. So it seems a little bit odd in the way the website's set up. Could be mistaken as like something sketchy's going on, but I mean, in my case, all of them have showed up. But overall, I've been really loving these things. So check this out. I've just been crawling so far, but the throttle response on this is amazing. You can just, look how blippy that is. Oh, a little bit of a brown out there, whoops. Just super snappy. If you want to hop up an obstacle, this thing will hop up an obstacle. Shout out to those of you who noticed the elastic band on the hood of my car. That's because I always forget my hood pins on the Capras. With a body rig, I'm usually like, oh, okay, I need body pins for this. But with the Capras, I'm like, oh, cool, a buggy, let's go. And then I always forget my body clips. You can ask Cameron with Desert RC, he knows. Every time we go crawling, I'm always forgetting body clips. I just need to put like a pack of 400 in my truck. I have a big pack, and it's in my toolbox at home, which does me no good out here. You can see this ESC's got plenty of power, giving it to the motor to let it deliver some torque, and it's always smooth. Of course you can stall it out, but for the most part, she's good and torquey. It's got a good amount of gear reduction with the Reefs transmission. See that? That quick throttle response can save you on stuff like that. Need a little different view of what we're trying to accomplish here. But overall, I've been running it for a bit. I also took 2 of these ESCs and put them in my MOA with a couple Holmes 380 revolvers, and I've been really happy with that setup. I need that left rear to climb. There it is. Now I need the right rear to climb. Dang, that's a tough one without rear steer. But as far as the revolvers you can use with this, I mean, any revolver will work. I've got a Holmes, this one is the 1800 kV 540M. I don't believe this is my team spec. That one's in my class 3 truck. This guy's the standard Holmes 1800 540M that he started offering recently. Really smooth motor, good power, good control. I like it a lot. Paired with this ESC, it's excellent. Nice, good pull with that front tire. Don't give up now, Aztecs, come on. Okay, we're actually gonna get the car to rotate a little bit. And speaking of the Aztecs, these are my cut and shut Aztecs. These are in G8. I essentially go through cycles on my tires. For anybody who doesn't follow me on my cut and shuts on Instagram, I offer multiple sizes and tread styles. The Aztec's one of my more recent additions, and I offer these in Predator and G8. So what I do is I order a batch of tires, you know, a certain quantity to make a specific amount, and then I cycle through. So I will essentially offer 4 to 12 sets of a certain tread pattern, and then once I'm finished making those and selling them, then I move on to the next tread pattern. So there's kind of cycles I go through. The crawlers are my most popular, so they get cycled the most, but the Aztecs were pretty popular. I just don't think as many people have tried the Aztecs to realize how good they are yet. And I gotta say, I'm a big fan. I really like these Aztecs. This is one of the few Proline tires I would say actually gives crawlers a run for their money in my territory. Nice vertical climb. Get the hook, pull it up. Come on. I didn't actually expect it to pull up on that far right. I was just seeing what it would do. Oh, a little light. There it is. Very nice. A little bit different scenery out here today. Just out in the middle of the desert, not in Sand Hollow. A little more info on these ESCs. I think that they're actually marketed as a drone ESC, possibly. I don't know if this is marketed as a crawler ESC from them or not. Oh, on our tie rod. Nice, wiggle our way out. But with the drone, you gotta have instant throttle when you need it. Because I mean, if you're in need of throttle, you better give it to me now, you know what I mean? So maybe that's why these are so snappy and responsive, is because they've got a different idea in mind for throttle curves and response. But so far, I've been really happy with this thing. There is an internal BEC on these, but it's weird because it's not just a setting that you change, it's a physical connection you have to solder on the board. It's not hard, it just takes a little daub of solder. You don't want to cross up wires though. And I didn't use any wire, I just used solder to make the connection. But you want to have a fine tip on your soldering iron and use just enough of solder. You can of course always use a direct power servo and not have to worry about a BEC. I think stock, they come with a 6-volt BEC activated so that it will run your receiver, but you would not want to run a servo with 6 volts. And then it's pretty crazy. It goes so 7.4, 8.2, and 12 volt BEC on this guy. The amp rating changes once you get up to 12 volts. I believe everything below 12 volts has the same amp rating. But on my other cars, like my MOA, I soldered the BEC to work with those, and it seems to be working. I'm gonna break this thing if I'm not careful. It is finally crawling season out here in southern Utah. It is a bit chilly today. I think we might have cracked 50 at this point, and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which for us down here is cold. I mean, we're used to 110 degrees in the summer, and I've crawled in 110 degrees, honestly. I think the hottest I've ever crawled in was 117 degrees, and it was the day that I threw my first ever RC comp. It ended up being the hottest day of the year, so kind of funny. I just happened to pick the wrong day to throw an RC comp. I don't recommend throwing one in July, by the way, so don't do that. And 117 was pretty brutal. I did plan the comp so that it would happen in the evening, and then where I put cones and stuff was actually in the shade at that point. We started at 7, went into the night, which made it kind of fun. So at that time I had my side-by-side with a light bar, and I used my light bar to light up the course at night. It was pretty fun. We had a good turnout. I had never thrown a comp before, and I think I had almost 100 people show up. There's a video of it on my YouTube a ways back. Something about RC crawling in the dark. But I had a friend there with me who was visiting from out of town, and he ran around and got some awesome footage while I helped judge people. So just showing random competitors on course. And a few years later, a lot of those guys in that video that weren't at the time have become good friends. So pretty cool to go back and watch that. I will say, man, this RC hobby can, if you've got a good community in your area, it can definitely help bring new friends into your life. Having a common interest, and then being able to have something to do with that interest. Be like, hey, let's all go crawl here at this time. If they show up, have a good time on the rocks with your friends, man. It's one of my favorite parts about Proline by the Fire, is getting to meet the people that you talk to on Instagram and whatnot, and just go hang out with people you don't normally get to wheel with out on the rocks. And even the friends that you do wheel with often, it's still fun to go and crawl with them there too. This place is fun. There's just a ton of little lines you can zigzag through. This car's acting super planted right now. Gotta love the Capra. This car reminds me why I like the Capra. I left it stock wheelbase. I stretched it like a 1/4 inch maybe, and left it drag axle. Just put good gear reduction in it, a good brushless system, good shocks that don't leak, strong servo. It's got just the right upgrades on it. A little bit of brass in it. She works so awesome. So you guys will have to drop down in the comments below. Are you running brushless? I'd be surprised if most people weren't. Brushless has been awesome in my experience. Once I got my first brushless system, I really didn't go back. There's been like 1 or 2 setups where I stuck with brushed. And honestly, it's because I've been running brushless so long, I wanted to try some solid brushed setups. And even after that, I went back to brushless. This is a pretty good climb here. I can get these fronts hooked a little better. Maybe. If that front right would stay planted, it could get it. But it's picking it up. Okay, she's hooked up there. Damn, that was pretty good. Nice. Oh yeah, that looks fun. There we go. I should also mention on this ESC, it is 2S through 6S capable, which is pretty wild. I've run one on 4S, and most of the time I've been running them on 3S, so. You're also gonna have to be careful with which brushless motor setup you got with it as to what it's rated for as far as cell count. So if you guys don't know, kV is a number of how many RPM you get per volt that you feed that motor. That's why the higher the kV, the more RPM you get. So this guy is an 1800 kV, so every volt that I give the motor, it will give me 1800 RPM. So you take a 3S battery, which is 11.1 volts, and 11.1 times 1800 is the amount of RPM I should expect out of this. Car's a little bound up. You can see this brushless motor giving up just a little bit. You can apply a little more throttle to make it fight through it. But overall, it maintains torque pretty well. But of course, you can still heat up your brushless systems and make them cog. That was a cool one. That worked out really well. There we go, that tire was trapped. Sick. I still see a lot of people with questions about direct power servos. I guess this whole video is just dedicated to electronics talk at this point. Direct power servos, your standard servo runs on something called a BEC, which is typically in your ESC. Now, those are two three-letter words right there that might be a little confusing for you. A BEC means battery elimination circuit. John Holmes has videos on this and can explain it way better than me. So check out Holmes Hobbies if you want good electronics descriptions. And ESC is your electronic speed control. So that's what controls your motor. For a direct power servo, it bypasses the ESC and it essentially takes your positive and negative wire from your plug and it takes power directly from the battery to run the direct power servo. Now they all have different ratings of like if you should maximum run 3S or 4S. So you definitely need to check up on what your direct power servo is rated for. But typically it involves a little bit of soldering. Reefs RC has a couple plugs with XT60s that have connections for JST plugs, which is the style plug that Reefs uses on his direct power servo. So you don't have to solder anything if you don't have a soldering iron. So for a beginner, that's a good way to go. You can just buy that little adapter plug, it's pretty cheap. Buy one of his direct power servos, which are super strong, like this guy has, and you'll be off and running. A BEC powered servo uses power generated and given to it from the ESC, generally. And some of them can actually be stronger than direct power servos, which is pretty interesting. This is where the actual servo manufacturer knows better than I do of why that is. But like a Reefs 1100 servo is a BEC powered servo that gives 1100 ounce inches, and his best direct power servo is this guy, the 888, and that creates 880 ounce inches of torque on 4S. So hopefully you guys have learned something along the way. Generally, these are kind of what I've learned to be true. Maybe I misspoke somewhere, maybe I'm incorrect about some things. It's definitely possible. I'm not an expert in this, but after a few years of building custom RCs and all this, that's kind of the stuff I've learned. As far as BECs, you can get an external BEC that has a higher voltage rating and a higher amperage rating than some ESCs can produce. So if you have a really strong servo like a Reefs 1100, it may want more amps than what a brushless ESC will give it. So you would buy an external BEC, which Reefs now has, their Easy BEC, that, like I mentioned, they sell those plugs with those JST plugs. You can use that to power their external BEC as well. And essentially that takes power from your battery, from the positive and negative wire, and then it takes that power and converts it to a specific voltage that you want with more amps and sends that to your receiver, and the receiver distributes the power to the servos. So you got to do a few things there. You got to know what, oh dear, uh-oh. You got to know a few things with that. You got to know what your receiver voltage is rated for, because not all of them are rated for 8.4 volts. Most good ones these days are. Like the Flysky GT5 that I'm using here is rated for 8.4 volts. And then you got to know what your servo is rated for voltage as well. Most good servos these days are rated for 8.4, but you're definitely gonna have to check on that. Some of them are not, and it can burn up your servo, which, you know, a good servo is over $100. You don't want to plug in the wrong number and fry $100, and it will fry pretty quickly. So like on the direct power servos, this guy's a 888. It's rated for 4S. A 777 is rated for 3S. And if you plug in 4S and start driving it, it will just about immediately fry and burn up your 777. And that's not a cheap servo, so don't make that mistake. Read the numbers and figure out what your servos are rated for. So that's my general electronics talk for you guys. Thanks for joining my wheeler talk out here on the rocks. Like I say, hopefully it helped you learn something. I know guys who are like into RC and have lots of cool trucks and builds, and even they still have questions about some of this. I still do too. Like I say, watching the John Holmes videos, that dude is an electricity wizard. So you can learn a lot from subscribing to his channel and trying to understand what he's saying. He's pretty good, but he also gets off in the weeds really easily and starts talking about craziness that I don't understand. But really awesome source of info there, and it's on YouTube, so check that out for sure. And like I mentioned, there's a lot that I still don't understand, but I'm learning, so you can always just try to learn more. But ultimately, don't let this scare you away. Just have someone who knows a little bit more. If you have questions, don't be afraid to ask them. I mean, even if that's just the guy at your local hobby shop. Typically they know their basics pretty well. There are some guys who aren't the greatest, but you can also ask around online. Be careful of the information you're given online. Not everybody knows what they're talking about, which may also include me, so double check everything I've said here. But so far I haven't had any cars explode and burst into flames yet, so we're on a good track so far. I'd like to try and bump up this spot, and I need to get my rear out of there. So let's check our instantaneous wheel speed and see if I can get up this. I got the bump up. The car didn't like it though. What's also really cool these days is the power of social media. I mean, a lot of these companies do live streams, or you can live chat with the guys and ask them questions like that. Like on the Reefs live stream, they do a live stream on Thursdays, and you can ask Reef himself about some of the stats and his recommendations on different things, and they can get you advice on how to get you set up. Now everybody's got their own biases. Like, I love to err on the side of I want a bunch of steering torque, but it's because I drive like an idiot and I wedge my car up really hard and cracks and stuff. And there's times where I just get my front tires trapped and I'm trying to make them turn. So the more torque I have, the better chance I have at getting them to turn. A lower power servo just can't turn when it gets bound up. A stronger servo can turn with more bind on the car, essentially. And I've seen servos where you get your front tires trapped enough, they're strong enough that the rear of the car will move. And I've used this to my advantage rock crawling before, where you get your sidewall up against a rock and steer and shimmy it like that, and it'll shift the rear end of the car around. It's pretty cool. Nice little hop, worked out perfect. That was a fun line. Man, I just stepped on this rock and it totally shifted underneath me as I was walking. And to keep my balance, I essentially threw my GoPro at like Mach 9 into this rock right here. And she seems to be all right. So shout out to GoPro for making a really stout camera. Freaking scuffed up my hands pretty good. That sucked. But I threw my GT5 through the GoPro. And yeah, that eighth of a second to think about what's going on, you just go into save yourself mode and ended up chucking my camera, which wasn't ideal. Car's fine. It just sat still. Yeah, that sucks. I've driven this line quite a few times, the cars. Usually when I come out here, I drive this line. That's always a fun one. Start out in this little pocket. UC Fab flat skid, working to get our belly across that rock. Very nice. There we go. Oh, the reason I haven't been using my suspension suck down winch in this video is that my 2-year-old loves to play with this car because it has a winch. And so without the battery in it, he'll pull out the winch line and then try and tow his stuck trucks by hooking a winch line onto them and just ripping on the winch line. And he did break my winch line on this car. I don't even know if it broke. I think he just unspooled it all the way and then he just pulled the string through the set screw. So that's why I don't have a winch, a suspension winch on this guy right now. But it's pretty fun because when he breaks my stuff, I teach him how to fix it. So that's how life is, man. When stuff breaks, you gotta know how to fix it. Especially RCs. Like, what did he break? Oh, he broke a rod end on my Capra last time he was out driving it. And I showed him how to take the wheel off, take the screw out of the link, rod end came out, and then use the TGH rod end tool with the drill, swap that out. He had a blast. He loves beating up his dad's RC cars, I can tell you that. But fortunately, I know that I beat the hell out of him, so I'm really not worried about it, because if I haven't broken it, I'm doubtful that he will. Although on occasion he proves me wrong. But it's not like I've not broken a winch line or broken a rod end before. I do that often. So it's just a weak point in the cars. That's how it goes. So if you want my dad advice, there it is, like grand thumb. Let your kids play with your RC cars. Give them opportunities to learn. When the stuff breaks, make them help you fix it. Well, all right, guys, I hope you enjoyed the content today. Hope you enjoyed what I was talking about. If that helped you out in any way, drop a comment down below. Let me know what specifically helped you. And if you want me to cover more things in more detail, let me know which topics you want me to talk about. I mean, I'm a full-blown RC nerd, so pretty much any topic related to it, I'm happy to talk about. And maybe we'll do more dedicated nerd talk crawl videos where you get something to watch and you can learn something. So thank you guys very much for watching. I know that was super nerdy talk and conversation, but hopefully it helps someone out along the way. Oh, ooh. A little too much on that front left. But I've also run out of time to crawl here. I need to get on the road and going. So I'm gonna try and crawl through this bowl and then call it a day. Also, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. West Desert Wheeler's been awesome for me. And I've met a lot of awesome people. Created a business for it. And it's helped me make my way for over 4 years now. 4 years of doing YouTube and running my own business full time, which has given me awesome opportunities that I never would have gotten if I still had a job. So thank you guys, I really mean that. We'll see you guys in the next one. Keep the rubber side down.